I just want to welcome everybody and wish you a happy Independence Day. This is Commoner Law Group's first annual, if we're lucky, the American Commoner, 250 years on this time, 250 years since the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And we're here to celebrate in a unique way. I myself was in previous years, maybe you could say more of a flag waver, and even last year. I had the quintessential Fourth of July. I was in Cheyenne, Wyoming, with 100 members of my family. I, did we ever do barbecue? It was massive, and then we did the fireworks after sun went down. And I learned, even though it's not advisable, that you can hold these gigantic candles in two fists and shoot them out of your hands. So I was like, wow, I think I did the kind of Hallmark card version of the Independence Day completely 100% last year. I really did it. The All-American Independence Day and family, barbecue, fireworks, just everything. And I do appreciate that. I had a really good time. But if I'm honest with you, not one of many conversations I had with cousins and uncles and aunts and playing with the kids and everything. The conversation about America, our inheritance, what America really represents, who we are, did not happen. And I believe that we, as Americans, especially today, have a big job to pass on to the next generation the principles of free people, self-governing people, the responsibilities that come with that. I mean, it's all the things that come with that. It means a lot, and we're going to be talking about that during our entire all-day Independence Day celebration today, with various topics in mind. The first of which is the inheritance, and we're going to really start out strong. We're going to read the first part of the Declaration of Independence, and we're going to hear from you some of your personal stories about what America is for you, what you understand as the inheritance that has been given to us 250 years ago, and what that means in terms of maybe your daily activities or some of the things that you do and the conversations you have. And later in the day, we're going to dip into the grievances from the Declaration of Independence. We're going to look at the fractures that we currently experience, the divisions. United we stand, divided we fall. We're gonna be honest and look at those fault lines in America today. Then we're gonna move forward to some solutions in the segment called The Commoner's Response. That is, there are people, thankfully, out there who are doing something about these fractures. And then after that, we'll have a period of general discussion. And finally, we're going to end the day with the mutual pledge. Americans are not pledged to the government. We are pledged to one another. And we've got an exciting commoners pledge that I hope you'll come if you can make it in the last hour. That's between 7 and 8 p.m. Pacific time. And if you care to, you'll participate with us in a little ceremony of our own where we will mutually pledge to one another a variety of things that are important to Americans. So thanks for being here already this morning. And I want to introduce to you Dr. Frederick Graves, who is semi-famous. He's founder of Jurisdictionary, like How to Win in Court Without a Lawyer, which is an amazing course that's been going on for years to teach just ordinary people how to manage themselves in the current court system, whether they're in the civil court or facing criminal charges. You can learn how to file pleadings and do discovery and all of the elements of an actual case. And I took the course. It's very simple. It was extremely practical and very well done, and it's stood the test of time. It's been out there for years and years and years, and I don't know how many, Dr. Grace, how many people have taken your course at this point?
Probably more than 10,000.
Yes, yes. It's a real winner. I'll put a link in the chat if you guys are interested in learning more about it. But Dr. Graves, today we're just hanging out, like we're at a barbecue or whatever, but we're gonna have a bit of a heightened conversation, a good old American conversation, the way we do at Commoner Law Group. I just sent out an email to everybody with a little clip from the interview we did 4 years ago,
Oh, uh-huh.
in
It's
which
been that long.
you bravely answered a bold question. I simply said, "What is true law?" You want to hear your answer from 4 years ago?
Please. That would be, yes, please.
What is true law?
Big question. Okay, I'll try. Well, there's law that makes apples fall from trees. They don't fall up, they fall down. Same law makes babies smile if you tickle them. And that is the big law. If any of your people are Bible people and you look at the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 1, it says, in the beginning, uh, and the word there is logos. In the beginning was the logos. That's what it is in Greek. And the logos was understood by the Greek to be that which determines the fate of men and nations according to what we do or don't do. That law can't change. Man's law should, and if the people themselves will get involved in this process instead of letting the lawyers run the show, man's law should do everything it can to try to keep in mind, above everything else, keep in mind that this logos that cannot change will determine the destiny of ourselves as individuals and our nation. Because if we do wrong, we're going to get wrong. What goes around comes around. Karma is a real thing. Mm. The problem we have, and we've always had, is that we have people that meddle with their own opinions about what's right and wrong, or what the truth is. Of course, the truth is what it is, no matter what opinion we have about what the truth might be. And what's right is right. Now, I may not see what's right as clearly as someone else, but whatever is right, no matter what I see or what I believe. But when I happen to be sitting on a high court and making decisions about what is right and wrong based on my personal opinion or the kaleidoscopically changing opinion of the so-called public or collective, then we get away from this idea that there is such a thing as the logos, what people call God.
Yes. What do you think of that? Pretty cool, huh?
Thank you.
Yeah, it's stuck with me ever since. This morning we're gonna really set the foundation for an amazing day by talking about the inheritance that our founders gave us, and what that means. And I just love if you'd like to maybe set us off, set us going, set us into a direction based on what your understanding of the inheritance from 250 years ago.
Well, one thing I've been sitting here thinking about while you were talking, Clint, is that, and I hope that you can lead people to consider this and be motivated by this goal that I think is imperative, and that is that as soon as possible that we find those things about which no reasonable people can disagree, and then hold fast to those things. Does that make sense?
Indeed, indeed. And I know that the commoners of 250 years ago had strong motivations to be united because they had a significant foe and this king who was meddling in their ability to make a living. Very concrete, practical, concerns they had.
Many, many years ago, uh, a fellow wrote a book. It was called Novus Organum. It was Sir Francis Bacon. And I don't recommend that you read the entire book. It's quite wordy and lengthy. But in the very first few pages, he is addressing the people of his time when most of thinking, most of leadership was in one way or another oriented with whatever ruling or decision making or opinions were coming out of Rome. And his challenge to his readers was what I just said. Let us find those things about which we can all agree. Let us set aside our opinions, just for the moment. I mean, have opinions. I mean, one of the beauties of being an American is you have a right to have an opinion, and at least to some degree, you can still express your opinion, although the enemy is working on that. They're trying to limit our ability to express our opinion about certain things. But he said, let's start with where we can agree. Find those things about which we can agree, and then let's build on that. Let's build a new tomorrow. And the people who met in Philadelphia, of course, they had some pretty strong feelings about the necessity of government. I think right there is maybe one thing that we should agree to, because only a very foolish person thinks that anarchy is the answer. People that want freedom without law, freedom without order, freedom without any constraint that makes the world safe for other people, uh, those people need adjustment. And as you wisely counsel me, we need to adjust them kindly. We need to adjust them with love and wisdom and patience. But that doesn't mean we in any way need to give in to them, because their thinking is the enemy of peace. It undermines prosperity for everyone. So again, can we at least agree that we need government? That'd be a good start.
Yes. And those learned men who crafted the Declaration of Independence were very well studied in governance and civil matters from, having studied the classics, Greek and Roman philosophy, as well as the more to their time contemporary writers writing about natural law and just the inherent rights that we have and freedoms to be. But there's a balance, right, between freedom, if you will, and responsibility. Freedom today, too often, people are libertine in their attitude, and freedom
Close the door.
means just that, like you said, an anarchism, a kind of I can do whatever I want. We live in an affluent time, and people do have quite a lot of latitude sometimes, and they can feel they can do whatever they want. And pleasure is the principle, but I don't believe that's what the wholesome folks from 250 years ago determined for us. So yeah, they were very educated about all matters related to governance. And I guess it was not a question to live. I mean, there was a sense of, I mean, the word anarchy has obviously developed over time. I believe like anarchy does mean a can mean living freely with a very limited government as well. As like a just a thin veneer of government and not the massive behemoth we have today. But what is this principle of government that you're describing? What is it that the founders knew about government?
Well, as one old wise writer, I think the writer was wise. His book was revered for quite a long time. Uh, he began with the idea that he called it the blind force of the people. He said the blind force of the people. I can only paraphrase. I don't remember it exactly, but it was the blind force of the people is like gunpowder burned in the open air.
Mhm.
It's waste and ruin. Uh, that the blind force of the people needs to be managed for the benefit of the people. So that it's almost as if that sentence needs to be repeated and shouted from the housetops. That the blind force of the people needs to be managed and channeled and into functions that benefit the people in every way, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, socially, uh, business wise. Uh, And when that simple, basic, fundamental uh, vision or concept, or call it a wisdom, I call it a wisdom, when it's gone, when it's ignored, especially when it's ignored by people in high places that sit with black robes on benches in Washington and around the world, really, the people suffer. It's a foregone conclusion. It's unavoidable. It's like the logos, once again. If we don't consider these things that are absolute truths, then how can we ever think about building or reestablishing or readjusting this thing that we call government? And of course, we can get into the concept of democratic republic and constitutions and all those other things. It seems to me that that's more secondary to these fundamental things about which all reasonable people can agree. I'd like to think all reasonable people understand that. Certainly parents that have children that are in their terrible twos realize that there has to be some restraint, and that when the restraint is something and it's done in a way to favor those who are being restrained, then that's good government in a nutshell. But we have a lot of people today that have risen because of their money and because of their influence, or even because of their dastardly deeds, that don't see this, don't care about it, don't care about us. But we do. And the more of us that see these fundamental truths that are inviolable and have enough gumption and get up and go about us, or to care enough and love our neighbors enough to actually work for a day when these fundamental principles are established and written in stone, and that the people themselves won't tolerate for them to be violated anymore. And of course, that's when the ink hit the parchment there in Philadelphia 250 years ago, for that just same purpose. The government needs to rule us in a way that favors us, not that favors the government, not that favors any individual collectives, but we've gone so far away from that because I believe that's where the compass needle is pivoted. It's where the fulcrum of
The
the
pendulum.
balance of
Yeah.
justice that's on my ring. It's a razor's edge. And we have to get back to find those things about which we can all agree, and then stand together, stand up, because those things about which we can all agree are truth.
Fantastic. And so, yeah, let's take a look at the actual Declaration of Independence, because there are some things that are considered in this document to be uh, held to be truths. And this was later we talk about we can talk about the creation of the Constitution, which really formalizes our Republican form of government. However, at this particular time in history, there was a government. It was a king from on the other side of the ocean who was ruling and did quite a few things. Again, stick around for the grievances. That's our next segment in a couple of hours. But right now, let's just dive into these truths from the Declaration of Independence. Again, learned men. These words were very well crafted, written and rewritten, debated, of course, before they put their 56 signers put their names on it. Can I get a volunteer to read these words for us? Go ahead and raise your hand or just unmute and start reading.
I'll read it.
Okie doke.
Tell me when to stop.
At the
In
bottom,
Congress, July 4th, 1776. Where do you want me to stop, Clint?
at the bottom of the page there.
All right. The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary of one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impelled them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light or transient causes, and accordingly all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when the long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty, throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world.
Oh, wow. Those words move me. It's just amazing, amazing document. So let's have some conversation, Dr. Graves, with the beautiful people who've shown up to celebrate Independence Day with us. Welcome, everybody. Those are the words from 250 years ago that started this whole American experience. What do you think would be a good question, Dr. Graves, to put out there to stimulate? What's the right question, so to speak?
Well, perhaps we could hear some people saying some things that they think that we might all agree about without exception. This
Absolutely.
is what Jefferson said. He said, we hold these truths to be self-evident. So if we believe that there are such things as self-evident truths, let's share what are they that we can all agree about and start there.
Absolutely. Some of those words that Dr. Graves just read, or some of your own. What can we all be united around? What's undeniable? Alice, go ahead.
Uh, well, um, so the words are self-evident. Okay, so who, what does that mean? Are they self-evident to whom? So it turns out that these were not self-evident for everybody. The Romans, the Greeks all believed in a hierarchical kind of tyrannical system. So where did this language come from? This language came from the Bible. Self-evident meaning to people that read the Word of God, but not self-evident to anybody else, because only in the Bible there's such a thing as equality. You know, neither is slave or free or rich or poor. We're all one in Christ Jesus. And so, yeah, they're self-evident for Bible believers, for Bible readers, not to anybody else. Everybody else is, they
Not for the
live by
pagans.
tyranny. Tyranny.
The pagans want tyranny, huh?
Yes, they do.
Well, that's something that's probably self-evident as well. Pagans will tend to tyranny. Thank you, Alice. Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely historically sound. I was just watching a wonderful presentation from a pastor who was establishing, well, reporting on the historic nature, the Christian nature of the folks. There was still some variety within their religious beliefs, apparently, from Unitarianism to, Orthodox to Catholic. But like you said, they all held it as self-evident that we're all uh, God's creation, and in that sense, we're all the same. Not royalty, not slaves, commoners, ordinary folk, and beautiful and perfect in that way. All right, what else? What else is absolutely self-evident, folks? What in the of those words resonated with you as absolutely true, or what are your expressions might be that are undeniable that we can all get behind? Go ahead, James. Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for doing this. And I know I'm scheduled to be here in about 4 hours, but I have an intervening something, so I had a moment to poke my head in here. So I wanted to say hi and thank you, and I'll see you later. I think I heard Dr. Graves say something that I would like to comment on. It's been something I've tried to keep in the forefront of my attention. Um, Yeah, we're all equal, but we're all different. And that's the beauty. Okay. And I try to live along the lines of, well, what are my priorities? And what do I think is important and I focus on? And, that changes from day to day and month to month and year to year. But if everybody could, at least as a mental exercise, ask yourself, what are your top 20 priorities? Okay. And if you were to write them down, the odds that any two of us come up with exactly the same list in the same order with the top priorities, going on down, and you could have top 10, top 20, top 100, top 1,000. Okay. Um, the odds are astronomical that any two people on the planet would have the same two lists of their top 20 priorities. And so then you have to ask yourself, um, well, if I compared my priorities to yours, they would be different. Maybe your fifth one would be my ninth one. Okay. And your priority might be going in that direction, but my take on it might be going in the other direction. So we might disagree, even though it's a priority. And so, what I try to do on a daily basis is respect other people's priorities. You're focused on what, is important to you. But rather than do what I think most people do on social media, where you could say we agree on 19 out of 20 things, let's fight about the one that we disagree on. Versus, we disagree on 19 out of 20 things. Let's work on the place where we agree and see if we can make the world a better place. Okay. And so to get 56 people to agree to a list of, I believe it's 27 grievances. Okay. Essentially, they said, look, these are our priorities. And we all agree that we're not happy about this. Okay. And so the dynamic that I see most people following is what I mentioned. It's like rather than focus on what is it you want, and what do you want the world to be? Well, they knew that they didn't want to continue to subject themselves to what the king was doing in the situation and the tax collectors and all that sort of fun stuff. And I think in many cases, we also know that we're fed up with any one of a number of things. Okay. And I think we can all probably have an easier time of agreeing on the things we're not happy about. There's a lot of gripes. There's a lot of they only came up with 27. Oh man, there's a bigger list than that. But the big question is, what is it that we want? And they had a little bit of trouble. They started out with the Articles of Confederation. They thought that that was what they wanted in the future. Then it became the Constitution and all of the many things that have happened since then. But the starting point. And I just wanted to poke in and stir up some trouble and leave. So I'll see you back at noon. Um, I think it's important to recognize that they were rightfully airing their grievances publicly. A lot of people gripe, okay, but it's not necessarily easy to say, look, I'm putting my name on this. I'm unhappy about these things that somebody else is doing. Um, but what is it that we want? And if we could talk to any and all of the 56 signatories to the Declaration, um, I wonder how they would think we're doing.
I agree.
Are we still, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that is for later today too. We're going to get into how are we doing in America today. This first segment is really just establishing what is this unique thing that was created 250 years ago. And just to answer your question, these two words, capital S safety and capital H happiness, are right here in this document.
mhm,
And not to be disagreeable in the way you were pointing out, James, but I don't hold this preamble, but even before the grievances, the preamble establishes some kind of authority invested in common man and woman, and it's not. I don't interpret this as just a different set of priorities from the king's priorities, because yeah, there was always a competition in terms of resources and who gets what and who gets a piece of the pie and whatever. People have different priorities and different diff, diff, some people are rich and some people are poor, as Alice put it. But I think that what's being asserted here is more than just, hey, we don't like your priorities, King. We have different priorities. I believe that the American um, principle here is something more than just one, say, empire separating from another empire. This is this is changing the relationship to government altogether. And indeed, the one line that always stirs me is what happens when governments don't don't have the consent. And as the form of government, if it should become destructive of the ends of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, then it's up to the people to abolish that government, institute new government. That is a kind of authority that isn't simply, hey, we're going to go over here, you go over there, and we'll go over here, okay, and we'll just be separate. So that's my interpretation. Go ahead, James. Did you read
you're gonna have to allow me to agree with you.
your?
Okay. No, I mean, governments are instituted among men deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. And, if people look at how the authoritarian nature of people in power seem to believe that, they're given power over others. Well, it's only when we give our consent. And so I do got to run. I have another engagement shortly, but I just want to say hi and thank you so much. And I'll see you in, I guess, 3.5 hours.
That's right. So everyone put it in your calendar. James is going to be with us. Uh, what's the topic area? I had it at my fingertips here.
Oh, I'm sure we're going to be all over the place. Yeah. See you.
All right. Thanks, James. Yeah, he's going to be our anchor that day. I mean, later in the day, and look forward to talking more with James. But let's hear some from some of your voices. What are, as Dr. Graves put out there, what are those things that are self-evident amongst a self-governing free people? Do we need a creator as the highest authority? Do we need uh, uh, to believe that prosperity and peace and happiness are the ends of are the really the point of being together in any society? Is that really what we have in common, that's if despite all of the variety of priorities and opinions and styles and differences among us, do we not all agree that at least together we have a common mission, which is to produce peace and general prosperity among ourselves? Rather than, for example, dog eat dog, right? Every man for himself kind of attitude. So yeah, let's hear some voices. Thanks. There's some great chat going on here too. The chat's wide open. You can chat with each other as well directly. If you find somebody in the chat that you want to directly chat to, you can, and you can exchange contact information and be in communication with each other after today. I'd love it. I'd love it if people made some connections here and that those connections last and mutually benefit you for years to come. That would be a wonderful thing.
I just wanted to say that what Mr. Ragusi said, James Ragusi. So they've done actually studies where people that go, to become American citizens, they've given them questionnaires to see how they would answer. And 90% of the questions are, pretty much conservative. I mean, they're rational human beings. It's only 10% that are not. So we have a lot in common with people that come to this country, but yet somehow they go a different way later on. So, I mean, most people do agree on these basic, principles of, you know, uh, well, what conservatives believe, basically, that, equality, justice, liberty, those kind of things. It's just that after they become Americans, something else happens, and they do something else. I don't know, but yeah, most people that come in this country, that become, naturalized born citizens, naturalized citizens, are very, how can I explain it? They think in a fairly conservative manner.
I understand. Yeah, thank you. You're being today, I can tell you're being a bit scientific today, which is fine and dandy. Yeah, we're talking about principles this morning. We're talking about what is perhaps principles that may not be very well established today, but 250 years ago, those folks planted their flag. They declared it. I don't know if you guys appreciate the power of the word declaration itself. Declarations are a form of speech that is, I say, oftentimes the most powerful form of speech. In declaring, you create reality. That's one. We're not just describing like a scientist, various experiments and facts that we can observe. We're literally those folks when we declare, we are literally creating reality. We're saying this is what's so, and it's so because I say so. That's the nature of declaration, and that's why we call it the birth of our nation, because we went from before the declaration not being a nation to because of and after that declaration, we were therefore birthed and we were a thing and we were a nation. So there's a power in declaring, and that's what they had the gumption to do once and for all. And I believe it is a huge, uh, what would you say, a huge development in human Western civilization. So yeah, I want to hear some voices from you folks out there. Again, thanks for putting some great stuff in the chat. But if you want to turn on your video, show us your beautiful faces. Want to hear your voice. Today is a great celebration. It's not a seminar, it's not a webinar, it's not a lecture. It's a conversation. We like to do that at the Commoner Law Group often, so we can hear all the commoners' voices today. Where is the celebration in your heart? Where does those words from the Declaration of Independence preamble, which ones moved you? Which ones do you want to echo right now? Anybody? Go ahead and open up your mic and just start talking. yeah, again, I'd love to see your beautiful faces if you're in a place where you can turn on your video, it'd be great. Be great. But looks like people are kind of quiet. We just getting our morning started yet? You haven't had your coffee?
Well, I guess I can go if nobody else wants to go. I just want to tell you my story. So I came from communist Romania back in 1977, where the government had complete control. We were completely equal and completely poor. So a doctor made not much more than a janitor. That's what communism and socialism is. That's what,
Was my assumption in those kinds of places that though you said everyone's equal, but was there not an upper class,
yes,
bureaucratic upper class who lived a little bit better than everybody else?
yes, they did, yes, while telling everybody that they have to be equal. So it's, there's no such thing as true communism except in the kibbutzim of Israel, where people willingly, see, it's a willingness to work together. Nobody's forcing you.
Consent of the governed.
Yeah. But anyway, so this is the best nation in the world. There is none other nation than the United States that is more wonderful, more, you can become whoever you want to become. You're not bound by anything except your abilities to do great. There's freedoms here that no other country has. Although lately, you can't say a lot of things in public because you get canceled and all that. But it's just the most wonderful place in the universe. The Constitution is a miracle in itself. No other country has this kind of constitution.
Yes. Yes. So the question in front of us today, folks, at this time is what can we all get behind? What truths are self-evident and can we all as Americans get behind this morning as we establish the beginning of an all-day celebration of America's 250th birthday? We're going to be going all day, but here in this first period, Dr. Graves has been gracious enough to get us started with a very powerful question. What can we all agree on? What is self-evident among men and women, free men and women? Edward, I know you have words to say. Hank, I know you have important observations. I know you guys. Chris, I see you there. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you folks. Or maybe Dr. Graves, you have some more to say for us.
Well, I'll get back to this. Do you think all of us could agree that we want to be treated equally by government? Or do we want some people to be more equal than others, like George Orwell wrote about in Animal Farm? So there's a question. Is people here, does everybody here want to be treated equally by government, or do some of you want to have favors and because of what you believe or how you feel or the color of your eyes or or where you're from, you think you should be treated differently, or do you agree, at least with the concept Jefferson was saying, we're all created equal? Do we maybe we don't agree with that. Certainly we're created with differences, but as far as how we are treated by this government that we're continually trying to establish, because it still needs work, do we agree? Do you want to throw that out for discussion, Clint? Maybe we don't know. Maybe some people think that some people should have favors, or if you raise hogs in Ohio, that you should be paid for not raising the hogs. Well, in Indiana, people that are raising hogs have to work very hard to slop the hogs and take care of the hogs, and there's no subsidies. Uh, is this a core thing that we could agree about, that government should treat all of us equally, or are some more equal than others? There's a good question. Maybe is that a good question?
That's a great question. And I bet if we were honest with ourselves, we would find ourselves making exceptions that, yeah, generally equality is a good idea, but for whatever reason, some perhaps benevolently motivated, for the greater good, others for selfish reasons, perhaps. But yeah, in the term equality has obviously been almost destroyed today. But equality, you mean it? I'm pretty sure you mean equality as you're saying under the law, equal treatment. And so, in that sense, we may not equal in our resources, in our hog raising abilities. We're obviously there's such a diversity in every different category of humans, but we expect that our relationship with government and that the law that we consent to be applied uniformly.
I
That
believe so. I want government to treat each of us equally as far as government is concerned. And that's the government that I want to work for. But I think some people don't agree with me. I've talked to many people. They think that certain people should not be treated equally. They should be shunned and treated with disdain and disfavor. Here's your group. Does your group agree, or?
well, I just see one dissenter, Hank, is I think he's making quite a few chats. He's arguing for no government, I believe. Um, but Hank, you're welcome to open your mic and put a voice to it. Um, because yes, there are people who today are very dissatisfied with government and every other government that you can point to. Like name one government. So, like Romania, the communist Romanians aren't so great, right, Alice? And I think a lot of people talk about America in a kind of superficial way, and they say that America is better than any other place. And so it's really not a superlative, it's just a comparative, meaning, okay, so we're better than Romania from the 70s. Okay. We're better than communist China of today. We're better than North Korea. We're better than Mexico. We're better than, but could we be better than we are now? Have we been better before? If we're going to be comparative, we need to then put in front of ourselves a challenge to even be better in the sense of equality in the application of law. The American principle of pursuit of happiness. Are we fulfilling, really on the idea that we are all do Americans genuinely consent to our government? There are so many complaints, almost a malaise has set in and a resignation that government will be corrupt and there's nothing we can do about it. Is that something to crow about? Again, 250 years ago, the founders gave us a solution. They had a solution for their era, the particular tyranny and despot that they were dealing with. But are we able to authentically reassert the principle that we're all created equal today, and that we have the duty to correct our government? Love to hear from you guys. Daniel, Edward, minister. We have a minister with us. A minister who doesn't speak up. Interesting.
You know, these things just I don't really have a coherent, complete idea here, but as you're speaking, I'm thinking about, you know, the idea, all authority on earth, seems to root back to this idea of a God, a creator, a higher being, and however you want to look at that, um, that authority, resides within all of us in a lot of ways. And this whole idea of being equal, I think the big one, the whole purpose of the foundings starting up is that the government had to be held to equal standards. And I think that we could all agree that um, these people are getting away with murder, literally, and they're never held accountable. But in that comes the idea that, that's really our job. It's a mental flip that they're the government when in fact we are the government. And so if they're to be held accountable, we're going to have to do it. It's not that they're ever going to give you permission. During the Epstein files, they're basically saying, well, if we prosecuted everybody or investigated it, it would just shut down the whole government. And so therefore, we're just going to exempt everybody from this thing. And it's not the issue is whether it happened or didn't happen. If a common man was involved in something like that, he would be investigated. He would be jailed and put on bond until the facts were discovered. And yet these people, regardless, they just continue on. And so you go back in the Old Testament, and when the people asked for a king, it was considered a wicked thing. And that's kind of the way I see government. Government is a wicked thing because the people, all of us being equally self-interested, do things to get the best for us. And unfortunately, ever more so today, that's the way the world operates. It's all in self-interest. High and mighty ideas don't really motivate anybody. I mean,
They
I've tried.
motivate me. They motivate me,
Yeah, yeah.
Daniel. Okay.
Obviously, everybody and nobody and things like that can never be completely true, but um, there are good people out there. I've learned that suing and taking action and putting a stop. I mean, it educates your fellow your servants that are in office, and so when you sue them, when you put them back under the law, then their pride is kind of put in check because the law is on our side and they're operating lawlessly, honestly. And in the scripture, the Antichrist is called, lawless, the man of lawlessness. And I would rephrase that to say, every man that operates outside of law. But then you got to get into discussions of what is law. Is it, just something because some people can get together and write some crap on some paper that they can force everyone? It just doesn't apply. It's nonsensical. You have natural law. We all know it's wrong for someone to steal from us and force their will upon us in any way. And I think that's what all of this boils down to. And where do we have the right to exercise that power? Because now we live in a world where people want to play semantics and they want to play word games instead of that harsh reality of you're not going to force me to do what I don't want to do when I've done no harm. And if you are doing harm, you've got to stop. And that I think is the crux of the whole situation.
Yes, thank you, Daniel. It's interesting how we're talking about government and the application of law. And, someone said recently, I thought it was kind of interesting way of looking at it, that of our founding documents, the Declaration of Independence is the spirit of the law, whereas the Constitution is the letter of the law. And yeah, so the spirit of the law came first, and the letter of the law came a few years later, when people created the Constitution after the Articles of Confederation, of course, all the while seeking for a more perfect union and a form of government that will serve the people and perhaps protect us from the various forms of tyranny that it might arise. But as the Declaration of Independence itself, it just establishes some basic premises upon which we, the people, relate to one another. And if we should institute any government at all, that it will always and must always serve our ends, and our collective ends being the pursuit of happiness. So, which part of that's controversial and which one of that is self-evident? Um, Anyone? Anyone? Oh, shucks. Our minister had her hand up, and now she's not with us right now. But I'd love to hear from you folks. Dr. Graves just posted it to me, a great quote. Do you want to put that into the general, or just speak it out? Because that's an amazing, amazing quote.
Well, we only know what we know. And part of that self-interest is to think that, well, I know enough. An old farmer once said, I know what I know, and that's all I need to know. And that's part of the disease that we have. When this nation was formed, it was formed by men and women who read. They didn't have television, they didn't have radio, they read books. And books, for the most part, were only published by reputable publishers. There were publishers, the cheap publishers that sold garbage. But the people that started this nation didn't read garbage. They read Franklin. Well, they didn't read Franklin because he was in that, but they read Marcus Aurelius. They read Plato. They read Bacon, which I mentioned earlier. They knew, about truth from the writings of people that are deceased, and yet people today don't want to read. So the answer is, will we rise and will we equip ourselves, or will we just continue to believe ignorantly that I don't need to know anything more than I know? I read every evening before I go to sleep. I read important things. I don't read garbage. And I'm trying my best to know more so that I can serve my fellow man with what I know. And I do know that there are things that are self-evidently truth about which reasonable persons will not disagree. There always are unreasonable people that just want to disagree, just to toot their own horn. And that's sad. But the people that build, the people that make, the people that improve, the people that work to make the world safe for the children and future generations, they're constantly questioning themselves. Do I know enough? Do I need to work harder? What can I do to have a better influence on people that need the wisdom that I have? And that's the kind of men and women that were there in Philadelphia. And I like to think that most, if not all, of those men at Philadelphia had a woman behind them and questioning them and challenging them. There's no greater treasure than a woman who is wise enough to challenge the man that she's with, because we need that. Maybe we need more of the women's movement to step up and say to the men who are in power today, are you doing all you can? Are you obeying the essential principles and essential truths? Or are you getting off track and dealing with exigence and trying to think that the economy is everything, that if the people have a chicken in every pot, that then everybody's going to be happy. And to achieve that, then we nail people to wooden crosses. I don't know, Clint. I'm quite old, Don't think I'll be around much longer. And I'd like to think before I die, it would be a delightful thing if this light that I see, it would be seen by others. And they would come together and say, look, we have to agree. We have to stop finding fault. And we need to start teaching each other, what do we need to do to make the world safe for future generations? There's a lot of philosophy going on in our highest courts that really does need to be adjusted. But 99.999% of the people that I run into don't have a clue. And most of those people don't care. So if we don't care, then we don't. But you can't convince everybody all the time. So let's convince a handful of people and invite them to join with you and your common law group to stand up for what's right, stop bitching and moaning, and look for those things about which that we can all agree, and then be strengthened and united by those things about which we can all agree, and stand fast.
Amen. Hallelujah. Absolutely. I I agree. I agree heartily. Um, let's humanize those signers of the Declaration. I take them to be men. It just so happens, Alice, they're all men. They take them to be um, men who took great responsibility for the societies that they lived in, that they were leaders in that sense, that they understood these principles and they wanted to give us all a common pursuit of happiness together. And I just want to, show you from the National Archives this wonderful page I discovered called "The Signers of the Declaration of Independence." Quiz time. How many of them were there? Give me a number. Put it in the chat real quick if you know how many there are. Um, and which ones of these do any of these names look familiar to you? But there you can see there's some pretty good age difference. The youngest one I found was 26 years old, and then the oldest is in their 60s. Um, these were men of means, indeed. As you can see, many lawyers and uh, merchants. Some of them had more than one job. They might have been a farmer and a pastor, or a merchant and a lawyer, perhaps. These were men of means and of enterprise and ingenuity, and they were the ones who were making stuff happen, so to speak. So there were 56 of them, and I'm going to put it in the chat here. I did some research I did some more. This here just got me started, being curious about them. We have here the number of marriages they had, the number of children they had. Look at the number of children. Carter Braxton had 18 children. William Ellery had 16 children. You don't have that many children and give up on being part of constructing society. Obviously, these people had a huge investment spiritually and materially in the affairs of the communities, the cities, the towns, and their states and how they functioned. And they clearly have a big investment in what they're doing here. So what I did some research and I put together a spreadsheet that kind of goes deep into the signers of the Declaration of Independence and like how many of them died in the Revolutionary War, for example. I mean, they put their actions behind their words. This wasn't just all talk. When they signed that document, they knew they were committing treason in the eyes of the king. And the punishment for treason is death. So it was a big deal. And some of them were pressured, coerced through physical force to take their names off during the Revolutionary War. And none of them did. So yeah, as a gift, I'm gonna put in the chat this spreadsheet. You can use it to your advantage, but it's fascinating to me the the kinds of things that they went through and just who they were. I'm trying to humanize them. It's tough 250 years later. Things have changed. Culture's changed quite a lot. People have changed quite a lot. Lawyers today are not lawyers. You can see that, and in the spreadsheet, one of the stats statistics you can read there is their occupation, and you can see how many lawyers were among those signers. Many of them were lawyers, and I know lawyers have a real bad reputation today. But in those days, lawyers were not at all the same. There wasn't the bar certification. There wasn't the positive law structure where lawyers, are um, pledged to the bar and to the court itself and to the state, really the government. Um, they were they were Christians, to be honest, as Alice said. They read the Bible, and the law that they practiced was the law, the natural law, and the law of God, God's law, and that was righteousness and justice were absolutely reflected in their understanding of the order of authority with God, our creator, and then man as his creation to produce just outcomes. So, yeah, I hope you enjoy that. Thanks again for everyone for being here, celebrating Independence Day in this very unique way. If you have other plans today to go to barbecues or hang out and do the ordinary fireworks and stuff and put on your red, white, and blue hat or whatever. I hope you enjoy that and consider coming back and checking in on the conversation again later today. I'll put in front of us real quick here the schedule for today. This is in Pacific time, so you can maybe make plans to come and join us again. Another interesting part of the day, part of the day that you find interesting. We've got after this, we're going to go into the grievances from the Declaration of Independence, and we'll be helped with by Bindi Pechenuk, a friend of mine, candidate for mayor of Oakland, a musicologist. You can watch on our YouTube channel interview I did with her, where she discusses the tuning of music and how it changes the way we listen to music and the history of that. And then the fracture, that's going to be very interesting. We have full 3 hours dedicated to that because there's a lot of things people have to say about how America today has not fulfilled on the unity of the people. I personally believe that the powers that be, the tyrants of the world, actively pursue divisions and sow divisions among us because
Yep.
divided we fall. And they know that. Divide and conquer, you've heard that many times. It seems to work. And Americans today are, wow. I think it's been said already this morning that we look for points of disagreement and we really, it's almost a fetish, let's disagree. We may agree on 99% of things, but let's focus on that 1%. It's interesting. And then the commoner's response. We'll move into solutions at 3 o'clock Pacific time. And really, we're gonna have some exit build people I know will be coming. Daniel Metz is of the Sacred Honor Educational Fellowship is going to come join us, and he's going to talk about correcting your status and well, not just that. That's what he's expert in, but we're going to be talking about all the things that we ordinary commoners are pursuing today in the face of the fracture. And then we'll have group reflections for a couple hours. That's going to be a mixed bag of things after a lot of hours of talking about a lot of great stuff. We're going to, open it up to you guys. And then finally, if there's one period I'd love all of you to come to, it's the mutual pledge. That's 7 p.m. Pacific, which is kind of late, I know, on the East Coast, 10 o'clock. But if you can make it, we're going to have a kind of a ceremony. Americans are pledged to one another, not pledged to government. What does that mean to be pledged to one another? It's the glue that holds us together as a people, and you'll be invited to make a mutual pledge with us. And I'm very excited about that. I can't wait for that to happen, the kind of transformation that can happen in our hearts and minds when we see each other as commoners and together in this effort. So that's the day for today. Again, look at your schedule, see if you can pop in some other parts of the day. I'd love to hear your voices. Like right now, for example, Azizi I see. Thanks for turning on your camera. At least we can get a look at you. And likewise, if you want to turn on your cameras and your microphones, this topic, the inheritance, we've got about 50 more minutes left, and there's much to say about what those men and women of 250 years ago, what was this declaration? What did they start? What did they kick off that it might be I've said sometimes it seems like only a remnant remains of that spirit, but it is real, and as we just read from the preamble, it's based on some very principled ecclesiastical, you know, historical, philosophical bases. It's not, it's not a. What did it say? Even in the words of the preamble says, not for light and fleeting motives, right? I love that line as well. I mean, it's just so well crafted. Does anyone want to point out a line from here? I put it back up on the screen. It's so great. Does anyone else want to like focus on one of these lines that's particularly meaningful to you? That changes, maybe it changes the way you look at yourself and the people around you. I focused again on the line, which is pretty intense if you think about it, that whenever a form of government becomes destructive of these ends, the ends, namely life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it is the right, capital R, right, of the people, capital P people, to alter or to abolish that form of government and to institute a new government, laying its foundations on principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. So it's 100% the responsibility of the people. A simple way I put it sometimes, I tell people, if you're complaining about government, you don't understand what form of government we have. Because complaining is not the job of the people. Yes, you can list your grievances, but then it's our job 100% to make the correction. So, yeah, you might start with a complaint, but you can't end with a complaint. That's not where it ends. But so often people complain, and that's the end of it. We must also affect the change in government. We must alter our form of government if necessary. So that one moves me a lot. Any other of you have a line from there that's maybe when you read it in high school the first time, or maybe again recently as an adult, even this morning, what of these lines sings to you? Which one speaks to you?
I'm glad that you read that passage. And what jumps up to me is that organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect safety and happiness. So we have to organize.
Indeed, we have to organize. And the word organize, in the root of the word is organ, which means a whole thing. It's made up of different parts and cells in an organ, like if you take your, organs of your body. An organ is one thing made up of a lot of little things, but it becomes in the end one whole. And that's what the idea behind this is, that we the people are one whole thing. So yeah, again, here are the grievances, which we'll get into at the top of the hour. And actually, then here is the remedy. So, Dr. Graves, interestingly enough, you teach folks the law in terms of how to represent themselves in court, and you teach pleadings, for example. And if someone has harmed you, you teach them how to file a civil suit to remedy that harm. Now, somebody once just recently heard that this Declaration of Independence is something like a formal complaint. it has the harms, it has the remedy, it has all the elements that you would find in in a complaint, a civil suit. Have you ever thought about seeing and facts, right? The facts support your complaint. Have you ever thought of filtering your interpretation of the Declaration of Independence through that?
Well, I think at the end, there's a wherefore clause.
Mm-hmm.
See, yeah, well, he said, we therefore, right? And in a pleading, we say wherefore,
Uh-huh.
that we move this honorable court to enter an order. And yeah, in a way, it is sort of that sort of thing. It starts the process, doesn't it?
Yes. So like you can look and you can find the elements. Let's read after the complaints. Let's talk about what the founding fathers saw as the remedy. Can I get a volunteer to read this? Again, there are three parts people often point out of the Declaration of Independence. There's the preamble, which we read already, establishes the principles by which a people should govern themselves, the spirit of a new nation, and the predicates for that new nation. And then the second part are all the grievances, known as the grievances. That is the things that the king was really, where he really crossed the line for a free people. It's just non-negotiables anymore. No, no more. And then, yes, but then a remedy. Well, Dr. Graves, this line here, in every stage of the oppression, here's your attempt to resolve, right? Before moving to declare independence, it says here, in every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress. So there was the seeking of administrative remedy, if you will, or seeking to remedy things without going all the way to, a full-on lawful remedy
Mhm.
against the perpetrator in this case. So we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of free people. So that's pretty interesting legally.
It certainly is.
Yeah, it'd be a very different Declaration of Independence if they didn't address that they tried to resolve things in a more moderate way. So yeah, who wants to read the rest of this declaration? And just two more paragraphs, and that's the end of it. Anyone want to volunteer to read the Declaration of Independence this morning? Or if you're on the East Coast, it's already noon. Anyone? Come on, you guys. This is Independence Day. We're having a great celebration here. These words are wonderful. I would much rather read the Declaration of Independence with you guys than to watch a fireworks show. Me personally. I've seen fireworks. They're fabulous. I've seen lots of different fireworks. I've seen the most elaborate, probably the most expensive fireworks known to man. And I've seen some very humble fireworks as well around the world. But there's something about these words that inspires me and moves me more than any pyrotechnics that they've got. Well, Dr. Graves, would you do us the honor?
Well, certainly. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
There's that pledge to each other. They pledged their lives. What more can you pledge? Your fortunes. And indeed, those signers, some of them were, again, very well-to-do men, and their fortunes were at stake, and they knew it, and they were willing to pledge them. And then what is this sacred honor that they speak of? What is this sacred honor that they speak of? Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Graves. Those words are so amazing, so well written. Anybody see a word that they didn't know what that means? What's consanguinity mean? Anybody? Let's look it up. The fact of being descended from the same ancestor. Ah, they share the same blood. I see. I see. So here in this paragraph it says we tried with the king, who they refer to as a prince. They tried to work it out with the prince, but they also recognize that the people of Great Britain also are their brothers in a sense, and they could either be enemies or they could be friends. And it's kind of up to the people, not just the king. The people had something. They were addressing the people from people to people. And they're saying, look, we got a lot in common. We have the same heritage. We should probably be friends. But we've tried, and your parliaments don't seem to respond either. So we'll have to dissolve things. Now, you're all familiar perhaps with the Revolutionary War that then ensued, and then ultimately the Treaty of Paris, which was the end of the American Revolutionary War, and that happened in 1783. So this document in 1776, you could call it a throwdown. They threw down, and that throwdown was not finally resolved. Who was victorious? Did the declaration stand? Well, yes. In 1783, the Treaty of Paris was pretty much the fulfillment of this declaration. The dissolution of the bonds were final. See, 1783. So that's 1776, 1783. That's 7 years later. So something that they declared in 1776 became really fulfilled through lots of battle. And that treasure was tested, honor was tested, the lives of those signers were genuinely tested. Again, I'm going to open up the opportunity for folks to talk. Usually it's usually not a problem when commoner law folk get together. There's usually plenty of discussion, and I'm a little bit surprised, but it's okay. You don't have to, obviously. I have something to present to you, to share with you that's on topic here. If anyone, before I do that, though, I want to see if anybody wants to turn on their mic and say what about the Declaration of Independence sings to you? What is this inheritance that we were given 250 years ago? Anyone, anyone, anyone? Okay. Well, I want to play for you a portion. It's basically the introduction to a feature film from Hillsdale College in their studios. It's simply called Revolutionary America. I I have personally not watched the whole thing, but I was pretty impressed by the introduction alone. And what's interesting about the way that they are approaching the topic of 1776 is by actually fast forwarding into the beginning of the next century. And enough time had passed in America that even by 60 years after the independence was declared, folks had already kind of forgotten. They had succeeded in producing a lot of prosperity, happiness, and the pursuit of happiness. And they were doing really well. And something about human nature, will apparently tend to have us forget these principles. And so it's no different than today when we perhaps have forgotten. Um, but I just want to share this with you because it's a nice production in itself, and it really kind of gets to the point of how important it is to remember.
Dear old friend, the 4th of July has been celebrated in Philadelphia in the manner I expected. The military men ran away with all the glory of the day. Scarcely a word was said of the labors and the fears and sorrows and sleepless nights of the men who defended and subscribed to the Declaration of Independence. Do you recollect the pensive and awful silence which pervaded the house when they were called up, one after another, to subscribe what was believed by many at that time to be our own death warrants? Writing at 65, Benjamin Rush looked out over a bustling Philadelphia, its revolution settled, its currency strengthening, its confidence rising. Yet 35 years after Rush and 55 other patriots pledged their lives and fortunes and sacred honor to independence, the country was already beginning to forget.
Human beings are predisposed not to remember. You see the founders already noticing that we're forgetting because the founding generation is dying out, and we need to remind ourselves of these basics lest we drift away and lose our liberties. Our founders were no fools. They recognized how bloody history was. There will always be tyrants and foreign armies. They don't just live and let live. That's not what tyrants do. All of world history is red with blood. It just is. Peace is the outlier. It's not the norm.
Rush had not forgotten. Even as his city hummed with prosperity, he remembered the silence, the fear, the moment when ordinary men put their lives on the line.
The founders were marked men. If they could have gotten their hands on Joseph Warren, if they could have gotten their hands on John Hancock or Paul Revere, these were the leaders of a rebellion. They're putting at risk their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor. They would have all been hanged by the British. That's what they're sacrificing. That's what's on the line, is their rights as Englishmen, but what they began to see as their rights as men, right? Their natural rights.
Revolutionary soldiers, they had no other choice. This was life or death. The men who signed the Declaration of Independence, they knew that they were either signing the beginning of a new nation or they were signing their own death warrants.
They were signing the beginning of a new nation or their own death warrants. What a huge gamble. What if they had not taken that gamble? Would today be any different? I'm grateful that they did. And I'm grateful that we're together to celebrate that they did do that. And to help not forget, as human beings are wont to do. What was that? 35 years later in Philadelphia, they were celebrating the 4th of July with fireworks and the military displays. And according to what we just heard, the legislature was silent. They weren't even celebrating what had happened just 35 years earlier when signing the Declaration of Independence and the Revolutionary War that ensued. So here we are to remember in a special way this morning, this afternoon, and this evening, as you wish.
May I read something that I sent out yesterday to several thousand people?
Yes, please.
Thank you. For justice. We pride ourselves, we proud Americans, we pride ourselves to think we've passed the Rubicon, that terrors are behind us, that we are safe at last from barbarians and fools, that somehow all our sorrows will be soothed away without our doing much differently than we have been doing, without rising in unity to reset the landmarks of reason and rules made our nation great in the first place. Our nation has survived a quarter millennium of errors. The major mistakes of our forebears are cured, and the few that remain must surely be repaired by the miracles of technology and the wisdom of AI, with all its kindness and concern for us who worship at its feet. We're blind to history. We have left our first love. We have forgotten the cause that motivated men for thousands of years to establish governments protective of the innocent among us. Governments predicated and erected on that firm foundation that defends itself against all wrong by wisdom, love, and adherence to truth. Governments that cannot be corrupted by men's avarice or the ignorance that hides from reality. Men rode on horseback or in wagons for hundreds of muddy miles to arrive in Philadelphia in response to a common call to tear down the stronghold of monarchy that God warned men against in the days of Samuel the prophet. A hue and cry went forth from wiser men than any living in this day, and men put aside their petty personal needs to unite at Independence Hall on that day, that we honor with our hot dogs and beer without much thinking of their purpose or their plan, to fix what had for far too long kept the working class at labor, while the rich and wrongfully entitled rode arrogantly in their fancy carriages past the groveling poor. Those worthy souls at Philadelphia were inspired by what that middle letter And the word justice should remind us of the price of liberty. They bowed their knees and pledged their lives to that noble call. Why do not we? We can. We can begin again to honor as they did what that middle letter calls us to do. We can reset the landmarks of love and wisdom that they set for us. We can rise to restore the reason and rules that promote prosperity, secure peace, and protect innocence from barbarians and fools. Together we can do these things. We are America.
Fantastic. Beautiful. Those words, folks, are linked in the chat now. You can click over to that and you can have, wow, you can have that. What a celebration. An honest, though, I would say, very honest and real celebration of what it means to be an American today on Independence Day. Wow. Thank you. We are America. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Yes. Hello, Abner. Good to see you. Hello, Sam. Hello, Hunter and Martin. We're just celebrating Independence Day together. This is our first portion of the day. We're getting in touch with the Declaration of Independence, the principles of self-government, a real break from what had existed before 1776. Well, I mean, I believe the colonists in America were experimenting with self-government the decades before, and were experiencing the benefits of providence and ingenuity and morality to produce a prosperous people without the need for a king. And after centuries and centuries of, European monarchies ruling everything, that was a big, big deal. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys. We've got about 20 more minutes together before we jump into the grievances and start looking at some of the things that tyrants get up to back 250 years ago, and maybe there'll be some reflections today. They might sound familiar, but for now, we're just really talking about that initial declaration of independence from the king. And I often say that the Revolutionary War was fought not only just to create our independence from a king, but also from the Bank of England. That the king and the Bank of England, and maybe even the corporations that had developed up around that trifecta, was what kept financially, spiritually, even the church participated sometimes, I believe, maybe the Anglican Church in England. But there was an apparatus that was not just one man, it wasn't just the king. Obviously, taxation and financing and money have a lot to do with a prosperous people. And the colonists, when they declared their independence from the king, they declared their independence from the whole thing. And as we reflected earlier, it wasn't just we're going to create our own empire over here because we have different interests from you, and you're too far away from us to practically be able to stop us. We're going to go ahead and just do our own mimic your empire, but just do it over here. No, no, no. These people were going to do something completely different. What do you say, folks? Anybody? And if there aren't any more comments, that we can finish this portion of the day and take a break and then pick up at the top of the hour. So one last chance for anybody who wants to.
Well, so that idea, even though it applies to a nation, it still in a lot of ways applies to our own lives. In fact, the nation is just a collection of individuals. And so if we apply those principles in our own lives and, we basically do our own thing, we might even face our own war. In fact, in this system, I would say from my experience, you will, though fortunately we can spill ink instead of blood. But just my thoughts on it is that you don't have to wait for the world to move as much as you can make these same parallels in your own life.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, it's interesting. I do study human affairs, have for decades. And the turn of phrase you just used is a collection of individuals. And what I found in human affairs, as Alice actually said earlier, we have to organize. And to be a people, it's something a bit more than an accidental collection of individuals. It is a bit of a mystery and an accident that we should find ourselves inhabiting the same physical geographical space, right? Um, but what makes a people is actually a conscious intention to be a people. And that's the extra, the extra, the sauce on top, the special sauce. We the people. You may have heard the expression, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And again later today, if you guys can drop in, we're going to talk about the fracture. So we'll be actually celebrating the people, the unity, the organ, the whole of the people as more than just a collection of individuals. We're going to be celebrating it perhaps in its absence, but nonetheless celebrating that unity is the name of the game. A people divided are not a people anymore. So, yeah, I'd like to ask you all to look at ourselves and recognize that in modern times, in contemporary times, we are remarkably alienated one from another. Independent, individualistic, not in the honorable sense, not in the like I go my affairs are and my fortunes are dependent on my choices and my actions. Of course, that's a moral proposition. We're talking about a land of people together. And in the Declaration of Independence, those 56 men, it wasn't obviously just them. They were representing a whole bunch of people. Uh, just I have to say, historically, not every single colonist was down for a revolution. Apparently, about a third of the people were absolutely down for the revolution. Another third were like on the fence, and then the other third were loyalists. They did not want to go through the trouble. They didn't think it was worth yet, perhaps. It wasn't necessary to have to go to such an extreme lengths to completely dissolve all bonds. But anyway, those 56 men were speaking for those who did want to institute a new relationship with government in the sense of no longer, we're not going to have a new king. We're not going to just elect our new person and have him be a king and rule over us like King George did. They literally created a distributed network of men and women who were mutually pledged. And so it's really kind of hard for I think the modern mind to understand how interdependent people really were in those days. Commercially, just communally, they were much more integrated, and that's just the way it was at the time. It's a sign of our times today that people really don't experience themselves as fully integrated in their neighborhoods and in their towns and in their states. It's hard for us to see our fellow our fellows around us as one with us. We're that divided, we're that individualized, we're that alienated. It's the modern, it's really actually one of the hallmarks of modern times is this alienation. And so I'm inviting you to try to imagine a former time 250 years ago when it was just baked in that everyone was integrated and interdependent. You couldn't you couldn't just check out, so to speak. You can't just like, go dark and move to another city and change your name and change your yeah, technically you could, but um, that's something that people do today. We move from town to town pursuing different jobs, and people, you start your life over and people don't know you in the new town. That just wasn't practical, and it just wasn't even in people's minds. They were united already in their cultural, they were rooted, in their communities in a way that I think it's really hard for the contemporary mind to truly appreciate. But we must begin to see the interconnectedness, the opportunity to pledge to one another, knowing that our fortunes are together. I'm not talking about communism. I'm talking about authentic, ordinary folks working together and pursuing happiness, pursuing safety, pursuing natural rights and the protection of our natural rights. We're doing it together because we recognize that we're all in it together. So again, if there's anybody who wants to speak up and share what moves you, this is our opportunity to celebrate. I want to hear some celebration. Like that's what Independence Day is for. July 4th, once a year. Maybe if this is a success, we'll do it again next year. Celebrate Independence Day the commoner law group way, authentically, honestly, but affirmatively. There's something to celebrate. There's always something to celebrate.
Yeah, I think, excuse me, I think one of the big areas of celebration is all these people who came from many different countries to the World Cup and all that. And they could see the difference between their country and our country. And there are a lot of people who are so brainwashed in the United States, they can't see what the country is or what it was based on or anything like that. And these people, they come and they're like, oh my God, the US is the greatest country in the world. And in the meantime, we're fighting off all the leftists and brainwashed people and stuff, trying to put a damper on our joy.
Yes, yes, the American tendency to take things for granted. We've been so successful, if you in a way, right? We've been so successful that our affluence has made us go a little bit soft and not be vigilant against the tyranny that's going to come from any number of different corners.
Well, I think that all these people who want to spoil our joy and our our abundance and stuff know how to figure out how to infiltrate, and they can infiltrate especially when the economy goes down. Like that happened in the 1920s. Everybody was so joyful, and then World War One started, and the economy went down, and that's when communism came in. We're going to save you, da 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 da. And I know a lot of people are having a hard time financially right now. And so there's just a lot of that influence trying to come in and take over. And I think one thing I took a break and came back, and I was thinking, what can we agree on in the Constitution? And I don't think that everyone can agree on things in the Constitution due to their brainwashing and indoctrination and stuff like that, and misinterpretation of the words. Like, I do bookkeeping, and I have clients who, I mentioned once that tax isn't isn't constitutional. And they just told me, we don't want to get political. And I said, it's not political, it's the Constitution. So everything is so turned around. And I know more people are coming back to the total understanding of that total, the spirit of the Constitution. They're coming back to it. But I go on the internet, so it seems like everybody is against the Constitution.
Yes. The Constitution was only possible because of the Declaration of Independence many years earlier. Here again is the transcription from the Declaration of Independence. Were there any of these words? Were you around when we were reading this, Jean? I don't know if you were.
In the beginning, yeah, like safety, and you can take any of these and you can get a leftist opposite point of view, like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I think the pursuit of happiness means the ability to own land and own your own home and stuff. And liberty is freedom, and life, don't get me started. But, life, where does life begin? You've got that argument. And liberty, and if everybody were free, oh no. And pursuit of happiness, own everything. Own nothing and be happy. And you can take anything. And like what stood out to me at first was the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and institute new government. And I know a lot of the lefties are like, that's what they want to do. And a lot of people are afraid of control, like, oh no, AI, oh no, central banking digital currency and all this kind of stuff. So it's very confusing right now. And why, rule of law, I couldn't believe that some of my friends who I hadn't been in touch with in a long time, they were like, you want to move to Texas, but that's a rule of law state. And I'm like,
oh my gosh.
And I'm like, what do you mean? Why wouldn't I want rule of law? And another person said, well, if you move to Texas, it's a red state. And I said, well, if I go to there's this one town I want to go to that's really got good stats for crime. They've got really low crime rate there. And my friend said, well, if that's what you want, why wouldn't you want that? And there's this whole moral stuff about like I live in Tucson right now, and I looked at Bisbee, which is kind of an artist community, and it's a very small place, so you can only fit in 4,000 people. But every week, I said every week, maybe it's once a month. I think it's probably every week, and that was years ago. 1,000 people, 1,000 homeless people come in. I guess a friend in Bisbee told me that they have 5,000 people and 1,000 people are homeless. And so all these liberals are like, oh, we get to feed the homeless once a week. And there's like thousands of people. And a lot of these people are criminals, drug addicts, drug dealers, and I'm like, really? Why don't you do something to make them not homeless anymore? So, oh well, sorry, I'm ranting and raving.
Well, I just want to ask you, aren't you happy that those 56 men wrote this document and pledged their lives and their fortune and their sacred honor behind it?
Sure, but how do you get people to feel the same way?
Good question.
Can I say a word before I'm going to have to go, Clint? Can I say a couple of words?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. Well, there's a tyranny of ignorance And it's so easy to point our fingers at the darkness and in high places and not question the darkness within ourselves, the ignorance within ourselves, the willing ignorance. We watch television, we play with our phones, we get on the internet. I'm not trying to find fault, really. I'm trying to encourage those who would hear me. I know I watched some of the texts and some of the people that said some of the things on there. I don't think some of those people will hear me. They'll just be angry. But there's a tyranny of ignorance. Darkness invades whenever the light is withdrawn. This system that we have is a wonderful system. It's not being run properly in some ways, and in other ways, it's being run wonderfully. My wife and I, we live in a house, and we have running water. We have septic. We have electricity comes to. We even have Wi-Fi that comes to the house, and there's a grocery store nearby, and I can go there and buy bread and hot dogs. And we're going to have some hot dogs in a little while if I don't drop dead. And my stepson is here, and my dear wife, and everything. And you know, all of that is because somebody went to the trouble of actually studying what law is, what justice is, what government is, and what it ought to be. And there are a lot of people in power who are doing the best they can. There are a lot of judges who are really, really doing the best they can, and they get nothing but flack. The community, the social, what do they call it now? On the internet stuff, is constantly criticizing. And the people that criticize, for the most part, are people who never made an effort to learn anything. They want to say that they've been dumbed down. And yet, ever since I was a boy, there have been libraries in every city. Every little town has a library. And now we have a computer. I can use my phone to look things up. There's no excuse for being ignorant anymore. But people are ignorant. And the tyranny is in the people. Sure, there's tyranny in high places, but the tyranny is in the people. And if we don't take responsibility, I'll say it again. If we, the people of these United States, refuse to take responsibility to stand up for what's right and what's true and what's good and what's honorable, and stop spending so much energy finding fault with things when we could be fixing those things, when we could learn how to use the rules of court, we could learn how to sue the school board, we could learn how to sue City Hall. People do, and they win, and things change. Or we can sit around and just be sad, like so many people that texted over here. It just really made me angry. Clint wanted me to stay positive, but I'm trying to be positive, because I believe that the positivity and the result that we really want is never going to come to us until we decide to take responsibility and learn what it means to be an American, what it means to participate in government, participate in your judicial system, participate at City Hall, to get involved when you see something that isn't working properly, to not just sit back and point a finger at it like you know better than anybody else. We all know what's wrong. And I'm about done. I got to go. But there was an old show years and years ago. It was a Catholic fella. I'll think of his name in a minute. And he ended his show. It was on black and white TV. And he ended his show every time, and he said, "It's better to light one little candle than to curse the darkness." So how about lighting a candle? Light the candle inside your head. Make it shine brightly. Get a book. Read a book. They're online. You can get it. You want these Kindles. I've got a Kindle. I can read all kinds of wonderful things written by wise people that would encourage us all to understand that the mechanism we have in the United States of America, because we have a constitutional republic and because we do have courts, and you find fault with the courts until you're blue in the face. But when you finally realize the courts do work for people that know how to work them, take responsibility and stand up and learn something. And because the tyranny always follows ignorance. It invades. The wise people cannot be tyrannized.
Thank you for this opportunity, Clint. God bless you. You're doing a good thing. And if any time you'd like to speak with me, or we can unite and stand together and to lift this light, I will always be here for you, sir. God bless you. God bless everybody. God bless America. But how about America? How about finding out what America's really all about? Read a book.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Graves.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I can say something, another positive thing, and it seems kind of backhanded, but we see all the everybody being exposed for their corruption, and we're seeing the corruption being exposed in the courts, and it makes things look terrible, but it's being exposed. Everything's being exposed. So that, and we have to take a look at it so that we'll never let it happen again.
Yes, yes, yes. Wonderful. Well, you guys, you have made it through the first portion of an all-day Independence Day celebration, the Commoner Law Group way, where we're honest, authentic, and ordinary in ourselves. We're together, working it out together through conversation today. And